Welcome to our deep dive into the world of hobbits. We got some excerpts from the Fellow.pdf, which seems to be some analysis of Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. So, are you ready to become an expert in early Hobbit history and the events leading up to Frodo leaving the Shire?
It's going to be quite a journey. The Fellow.pdf covers everything from, Hobbit customs and origins to the shadowy threat of the Black Riders.
All right, let's start with the basics.
Hmm.
Who exactly are these hobbits? They seem pretty content to just dot exist.
Well, the Fellow.pdf points out they're an ancient people, passionate about peace, quiet and good-tilled earth. Not exactly the adventurous type, are they?
Not at first glance, no. But the analysis also mentions they were shyer of big folk, even in ancient times. What's behind that avoidance, you think?
That's where the mystery begins. The source tells us hobbits originally lived in the upper vales of Anduin, much further east and closer to Mirkwood Forest. Eventually, they migrated west, settling in the Shire. While the exact reasons for this migration are unclear, it seems to have been driven by the growing numbers of men in those lands and a shadow falling upon Mirkwood. Doesn't sound like a place you'd want to stick around, does it?
Yeah, I can see why they'd pack their bags and head west. So they leave Anduin, find a nice spot, and dot bam, the Shire is born. What can you tell us about this hobbit haven?
The Shire was a pretty sizable piece of land, 40 leagues from the far downs to the Brandywine Bridge, and 50 from the northern moors to the southern marshes. They were governed by a thane, a sort of hereditary leader who dealt with things like defense and justice, and the Shire was deeply focused on agriculture and what the source calls well-ordered business. To me, this suggests that hobbits valued practicality, tradition, and maybe even a little bit of bureaucracy, you say?
Sounds very hobbit-like. It's amazing how they managed to create such a peaceful and prosperous society. The Fellow.pdf even mentions that they started to believe peace and plenty were the right of all sensible folk. That's quite a bubble of bliss. But now, let's talk about Bilbo Baggins. He goes on this grand adventure, finds a magic ring, and, doesn't exactly tell everyone the truth about it, does he?
It's fascinating how Tolkien sets this up, isn't it? Bilbo initially claimed the ring was a gift, only confessing the truth to Gandalf much later. This seemingly small act of dishonesty is significant because it reveals a key aspect of the ring, its ability to subtly twist even the most well-intentioned hearts. This foreshadows the immense struggle Frodo will face, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like Bilbo's a good guy at heart, but even he couldn't resist bending the truth a little. So he finds this powerful, potentially dangerous artifact, keeps it a secret, and I'm guessing this doesn't go unnoticed, does it?
Not at all. The source described how Bilbo's wealth, after his adventure, became the stuff of legends in the Shire. This attracted all sorts of unwanted attention and visitors. Some, like the gaffer, dismiss it as nonsense, but others, like the miller, were absolutely convinced Bilbo was adding to his secret treasure hoard. It's as if the Shire's peaceful isolation was beginning to crack.
It's like dropping a pebble in a still pond. And then you've got those rumors of elves sailing west. It all seems to add to a growing sense of unease in the Shire.
Exactly. And remember Sam's fascination with those rumors. He yearned for a glimpse of the elves, the taste of adventure. It suggests that even in the Shire, there were those who felt a pull towards the wider world, towards something beyond their peaceful borders.
So change was in the air, even if most hobbits weren't aware of it yet. And then, of course, we have Bilbo's farewell party. The source makes it sound less like a party and more like a full-blown festival.
It was quite the event. Nearly everyone in the Shire was invited, and even folks from outside came to celebrate. Gandalf, of course, went all out with a spectacular fireworks show. There's even a description of a lifelike dragon that terrified the hobbits.
Can you imagine the scene? All that festive chaos, but beneath it all this undercurrent of tension. Everyone knows Bilbo is leaving, and no one knows what that means for the Shire. Then, boom, Gandalf drops the truth bomb about the ring on Frodo. No more secrets. No more pretending it's a harmless trinket.
That's such a pivotal moment. It marks a turning point for Frodo, doesn't it? Gandalf reveals the true danger of the ring, urges Frodo to keep it safe, and most importantly, to resist using it. The weight of that warning, the gravity of the situation must have been overwhelming.
Talk about a life-changing birthday present. Frodo inherits Bag End, becomes the master of the house, and suddenly everyone's looking at him with suspicion. The source even mentions some folks like Mrs. Sackville Baggins, who clearly didn't think he was up to the task.
And it wasn't just her. The Fellow.pdf even mentions young hobbits, fueled by rumors of gold, searching Bag End. Driven by greed and suspicion, even Frodo's family began to turn on him. Despite being in his own home, he was facing real isolation.
It's amazing how quickly things escalated, isn't it? And then, to make matters worse, Gandalf fills him in on the ring's history, its connection to Sauron, the whole shebang. It's at that point he realizes he has to leave the Shire.
Leaving the Shire wasn't just a choice anymore, it was a matter of survival. Gandalf laid it all out. Gollum's pursuit, the threat of Sauron reclaiming the ring, the potential for unimaginable destruction.
So what does Frodo do? Does he pack his bags and head straight for the hills?
Well, not exactly. The Fellow.pdf mentions Frodo delaying his departure, choosing to savor what he thought might be his last summer in the Shire.
It's understandable, isn't it? He's facing this incredible burden, this impossible task, so it's only natural to want to cling to a sense of normalcy.
It's a classic hero's dilemma. The deep love for home battling against the looming threat, the knowledge that staying could put everyone he loves in danger.
But while Frodo's trying to enjoy his last days of normalcy, the forces of darkness are closing in. Gandalf leaves to gather more information, promising to return for Frodo's departure. However, the source tells us that Gandalf's delay only heightened Frodo's anxiety. And then, just as things couldn't seem to get any worse, the Black Riders arrive. The Black Riders. That's where things take a truly sinister turn. Frodo overhears that chilling conversation between the Gaffer and a strange, unsettling voice. It really sets the stage for the danger that's about to unfold, doesn't it?
Tolkien is a master of creating suspense. He doesn't need to spell out exactly what's happening. The reader, just like Frodo, is left to fill in the blanks, to imagine the worst. It's at that point that Frodo knows he can't wait any longer. He has to leave the Shire now.
And that's exactly what he does. He leaves Bag End with Sam, Pippin, and Merry. Of course, we can't forget about good old Fatty Bulger acting as a decoy. What a brave soul. It's a far cry from Bilbo's grand departure, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. This time, there are no fireworks or farewell speeches. They're traveling by night, avoiding the roads, relying on their knowledge of the land to stay hidden. Their journey has become about stealth and secrecy. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow could be the enemy.
And of course, as with any good adventure, they run into danger almost immediately. Frodo's sense of foreboding, that encounter with the mysterious rider, the Black Shadow pursuing them, it's like the Shire itself is trying to warn them away.
You said it. And remember that heart-stopping moment when Frodo considers using the ring? It's the first time we see how seductive its power can be. It offers escape, invisibility, a way to evade danger.
The temptation must have been overwhelming. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How long can Frodo resist the ring's allure? But that's a question for another time. Right now, they're in desperate need of shelter. They can't just check into the Green Dragon, can they?
Well, they end up taking shelter in the old forest, which, as it turns out, is not quite the safe haven they were hoping for.
From bad to worse, right? What could possibly go wrong in a forest?
Let's just say that the old forest is filled with its own brand of magic and mystery. It's the kind of place where ancient trees whisper secrets and strange creatures lurk in the shadows. It's a classic fairy tale trope, wouldn't you say? Wandering into the dark, enchanted woods always leads to trouble.
You're telling me. And just when things are looking bleak, they stumble upon Tom Bombadil. Now, he is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, isn't he?
Tom Bombadil is one of Tolkien's most debated characters. He's this ancient, powerful figure who seems to exist outside the influence of the ring, almost untouched by the shadow that hangs over Middle-earth.
He's like a breath of fresh air in this increasingly dark and dangerous world. He shelters the hobbits, feeds them, and even teaches them a rhyme to call upon him in times of need. Talk about a handy friend to have.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Just how powerful is Tom Bombadil? Tolkien never explicitly answers this question, which just adds to the mystique surrounding him.
He's definitely a character who sparks the imagination, that's for sure. But as we know, the hobbits' troubles don't end there. Even with Tom's help, they have that terrifying encounter with the Barrow-wight.
The Barrow-wight. Now that's a truly unsettling experience. Imagine being trapped in an ancient burial mound with a malevolent spirit. Frodo, separated from his companions, faces terror and despair. It's only by remembering Tom's rhyme and calling for help that he manages to escape.
It's a chilling reminder that even with Tom Bombadil watching over them, the hobbits are not invincible. They are still vulnerable to the dangers of this world. Thankfully, though, Tom Bombadil comes to the rescue again, doesn't he?
He does. He banishes the Barrow-wight, gives them supplies, and sends them on their way with a warning to avoid those ancient burial mounds. From there, they make their way to Bree, a crossroads for travelers, a place where men and hobbits mingle. It's in Bree, at the Prancing Coney Inn, that they encounter a mysterious figure named Strider.
Strider. Now, isn't he the one who was eavesdropping on their conversation at the inn? The one Frodo thought was spying on them?
That's him. Remember how suspicious they were? Little did they know, Strider was about to reveal a secret that would change everything.
Intriguing. So, who is Strider? Is he friend or foe? That, my friend, is where we'll leave off for now.
Don't worry, we'll get to the bottom of this mystery in part 2 of our Hobbit history deep dive. Stay tuned to find out who Strider really is and what role he'll play in Frodo's quest.
Welcome back to our Hobbit history deep dive. Last time we left Frodo and company in Bree, meeting Strider, and beginning to realize that their journey was more than just a simple walk in the Shire.
That's an understatement. Their worries went from packing enough pipeweed to, evading ring wraiths and barely escaping with their lives. What a crash course in the darker side of Middle-earth.
It makes you appreciate the Shire's peace, even with all its quirks. But with Aragorn as their guide, we know Strider's secret. Now they were at least pointed in the right direction. Rivendell, home of Elrond.
Not just any home, though. Rivendell is legendary, almost mythical. The Fellow.pdf describes it as a hidden valley, a haven from the growing shadow in the world.
Didn't Bilbo mention Rivendell in one of his rhymes? Something about a broken sword?
Exactly. Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells. Imladris is the elvish name for Rivendell. It's a place of ancient power, steeped in lore and magic, almost like a refuge from time itself.
So they reach this haven, meet Elrond. One would think it's all rest and relaxation after their harrowing escape, but I have a feeling that's not the case.
You'd be right. They were still pursued relentlessly by the Black Riders. And even reaching Rivendell wasn't a guarantee of safety. In fact, one of the riders nearly caught Frodo at the ford leading into the valley.
I can only imagine how terrifying that must have been. It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the nature of these Black Riders? What are they exactly?
The Fellow.pdf provides some insights into their nature. They are Nazgul, once kings of men who were corrupted by the power of the rings, now enslaved to Sauron's will. They exist between the worlds of the living and the dead, wraiths bound to the power of the One Ring. And they can sense its presence, drawing closer to Frodo with every step he takes.
That explains their relentless pursuit. Knowing their nature makes their presence even more chilling, wouldn't you say? But how did Frodo escape? It sounds like he was cornered.
It's a dramatic scene, full of Tolkien's signature blend of magic and power. Elrond, it turns out, is more than just a wise and hospitable host. He commands the very forces of nature. He summoned a flood, a plumed cavalry of waves that swept the Black Riders away. It's a powerful display of his strength, wouldn't you agree?
It makes you realize that the fight against Sauron isn't just about physical strength, but about wielding ancient, almost forgotten powers. So Frodo is safe in Rivendell, and Gandalf is there too, right? What's the mood like? Relief? Dread?
A mix of both, I'd imagine. Relief at finding sanctuary, but also the looming dread of what's to come. Gandalf arrived, though not without his own trials, which we can delve into later, but everyone is gathered, and it's in Rivendell that the fate of the ring, and indeed all of Middle-earth, is about to be decided.
So what happens? Do they lock the ring away in a vault and hope for the best? Or is there a more proactive plan?
Elrond calls a council, a gathering of representatives from all the free peoples of Middle-earth, elves, dwarves, men, and of course the hobbits. The question before them is monumental: what to do about the ring. Keep it hidden, attempt to use it against Sauron, or destroy it.
Destroy it seems a bit drastic, doesn't it? I mean, it's a powerful artifact. Surely it could be used for some good, right?
That's the question that hangs over the entire story. The ring's power is incredibly seductive. But as Gandalf explains, it's also fundamentally corrupting. The ring is an embodiment of Sauron's will, a conduit for his malice. Even using it for good would inevitably corrupt the user, ultimately serving Sauron's goals.
So no using it for a quick trip to the shops or to win a pie-eating contest then. But can't they just toss it into Mount Doom? Problem solved, right?
That sounds simple, but there's a catch, of course. The source reminds us that Mount Doom, where the ring was forged, lies deep within Mordor, Sauron's domain. It's a perilous journey, filled with unimaginable danger at every turn. Even reaching Mordor would be a feat of near impossible proportions.
Right. Because Sauron is just going to roll out the welcome mat and offer them tea and biscuits while they're destroying his precious ring, right?
Exactly. He's got legions of orcs, terrifying creatures like the Nazgul, and all sorts of other nasty surprises waiting for anyone foolish enough to venture into his land.
So back to the council. What was the mood like? Were there any disagreements?
Imagine representatives from different races, each with their own history, their own perspective on the threat of Sauron. There was a lot of debate, as you can imagine. Some argued passionately for using the ring against Sauron, believing his power could be turned against him. Others, like Gandalf, insisted that it was far too dangerous, that even attempting to wield its power would corrupt them absolutely.
It's a classic moral dilemma. Do you fight fire with fire, risking your own soul in the process? Or do you find another way, a more difficult but perhaps less corrupting path? But someone had to make the final decision, right? So who steps up to be the hero?
And that, my friend, is where our unassuming hobbit Frodo Baggins steps into the spotlight. He volunteers to take the ring to Mordor and destroy it.
Wait, Frodo. Little quiet Frodo. The one who seemed perfectly content to garden in the Shire just a few weeks ago.
The very same. It's a moment of incredible bravery and selflessness. He knows it's a near impossible quest, a suicide mission almost, but he's willing to do it for the good of Middle-earth, for the love of his friends and his home. It makes you reevaluate Frodo's character, doesn't it? He's not just a simple hobbit anymore. He's becoming something more.
It's a reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and often from the most unexpected places. But surely he's not going alone.
Of course not. The Council, recognizing the immense burden Frodo has taken on, decides to form the Fellowship of the Ring. 9 companions are chosen to aid Frodo on his quest.
9 companions. That's quite a mix. Hobbits, elves, dwarves, men. It sounds like the setup for a rather adventurous road trip.
It is quite the lineup. Besides Frodo and his faithful gardener Sam, there's Aragorn, the rightful king, finally accepting his destiny, Gandalf, the wise wizard, Legolas, the elf archer, representing the power and grace of his people, Gimli, the dwarf warrior, steadfast and loyal, and Boromir, a noble man from Gondor, struggling with his own internal conflicts.
Speaking of conflicts, I'm guessing Legolas and Gimli didn't exactly hit it off right away, did they? Elves and dwarves. They're not exactly known for their camaraderie.
You could say that. Let's just say they have very different views on things like craftsmanship, beauty, and the proper way to enjoy a mountain range. But the Fellowship's purpose is to overcome those differences, to unite against a common enemy. It's a theme that resonates throughout Tolkien's work, wouldn't you say? The need for unity in the face of darkness.
Absolutely. So the Fellowship is formed, the quest begins.
Uh.
Do they make a beeline straight for Mordor?
If only it were that simple. Remember, Mordor is a heavily guarded fortress, surrounded by mountains and patrolled by Sauron's forces. A direct assault is out of the question. They need to find a more clandestine route, a way to slip past the enemy's defenses undetected.
Sounds like they need a good map and a whole lot of luck. So what's the plan? Does Gandalf have a secret route in mind?
Gandalf, as wise as he is, doesn't have all the answers. He was imprisoned by Saruman, remember? He's still gathering information, trying to piece together the best course of action.
Saruman, the treacherous wizard who betrayed the council. Gandalf mentioned him at the council, right? He was held captive, and Saruman wanted the ring for himself.
It adds another layer of complexity to the story, wouldn't you say? Not only do they have to contend with Sauron, but they also have to be wary of those who were once allies. Saruman's betrayal shows just how insidious the ring's influence can be. It can corrupt even the wisest and most powerful individuals.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who can you trust when even wizards can be swayed by the ring's allure? But what about Saruman? Is he just sitting in his tower, plotting and scheming?
From what we gather in the Fellow.pdf, Saruman is actively working against the Fellowship, using his own power to hinder their progress. He's become a dangerous enemy, almost as formidable as Sauron himself.
Double the danger, double the stakes. So the Fellowship sets out from Rivendell, facing not only Sauron's forces, but also Saruman's treachery. What's their first obstacle? Do they encounter any unpleasant surprises along the way?
Well, their first challenge is deciding which path to take. They need to get to Mordor, and the most direct route is through the Misty Mountains. But, as you can probably guess, it's not going to be a walk in the park.
Let me guess. The Misty Mountains aren't known for their welcoming committees and bed and breakfasts.
You'd be right. The mountains are treacherous, filled with dangerous creatures and unpredictable weather. And there's one pass in particular that Gandalf is reluctant to take. The Redhorn Gate. The Fellow.pdf describes it as a high, exposed pass, prone to sudden, violent storms.
And I'm sensing there's more to it than just bad weather, right?
Indeed. Gandalf believes that the mountains themselves are under the influence of some dark power. They're hostile to travelers, especially those who carry the ring.
So scaling the Misty Mountains is out. What's the alternative? A scenic detour through the Shire.
Not quite. Gandalf proposes a different route, one that's even more perilous. The Mines of Moria.
Moria. As in the ancient dwarven kingdom. the one that's been abandoned for centuries and is rumored to be filled with, well, let's just say things best left undisturbed.
The very same. It's a risky move, but Gandalf believes it's their best chance of avoiding detection and reaching the other side of the mountains. But even HE doesn't know what awaits them in those dark depths.
It sounds like they're walking into the belly of the beast. Ancient ruins, forgotten dangers, a fellowship of brave souls venturing into the unknown.
You're painting quite the picture. And it's important to remember that Moria is no longer the bustling, prosperous kingdom it once was. It's fallen into darkness, overrun by orcs and other foul creatures. The Fellowship is literally stepping into the heart of enemy territory.
Knowing their luck, they'll probably end up getting a guided tour of the Orcish dungeons. So how do they even get into Moria? Isn't it supposed to be sealed tight?
It is, but Gandalf, being the clever wizard that he is, has a trick up his sleeve. Remember those old rhymes Bilbo was so fond of? Well, it turns out one of them holds the key to opening the doors of Moria.
No way. Bilbo's cryptic poetry comes to the rescue. Tell me more.
The rhyme, as Gandalf deciphers it, instructs them to say friend and enter. And sure enough, when he speaks the Elvish word for friend melon, the doors of Moria swing open, granting them passage into the darkness.
It's amazing how Tolkien weaves these seemingly insignificant details into the story, only to have them play such a crucial role later on. But I have a feeling that opening the doors of Moria is just the beginning of their troubles.
You would be right. What awaits them inside is a story for another time.
Always leaving us hanging on a cliffhanger. Well, listeners, join us next time as we delve deeper into the mines of Moria with the Fellowship and face the horrors that await them in the darkness.
Until then, hold on to your hats and keep a lookout for those lurking orcs.
Welcome back to our Hobbit History Deep Dive. We left the Fellowship at the doors of Moria, about to enter, well, a realm of darkness and danger.
After that cliffhanger, I bet you're all eager to know what happened next.
You bet. I can only imagine what awaits them in those ancient dwarven halls.
Well, they don't exactly receive a warm welcome.
I wouldn't expect a welcome mat and a complimentary breakfast basket, no?
Not even close. Almost immediately, they're attacked by a creature lurking in the lake.
Oh no, not another monster.
The source refers to it as a watcher in the water, with these long, slimy tentacles reaching out to grab Frodo.
That's a pretty vivid image. Is it some kind of giant squid?
Tolkien doesn't give us a specific description, which honestly makes it even more frightening. Whatever it was, this watcher was powerful enough to pull Frodo under.
That's terrifying. Did he manage to escape?
He did, but only thanks to Sam's quick thinking. If Sam hadn't acted fast, the Fellowship's journey would have ended right there.
What a start to their journey through Moria. But aside from tentacled monsters, did they find any dwarves? Any of that legendary Moria silver?
Sadly, no living dwarves. They did, however, find signs of Balin's expedition.
Balin, the dwarf who set out to reclaim Moria from the orcs.
That's the one. They discovered his tomb and a chronicle detailing the tragic fate of his expedition, a tale of hope and determination ultimately crushed by the darkness that had overtaken Moria.
It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Their story is a reminder that even the most valiant efforts can be overwhelmed by forces beyond our control.
Exactly. It adds a somber note to the Fellowship's own quest. They're literally walking in the footsteps of those who came before, hoping to avoid a similar fate.
So, no dwarves, no reunion. Did they at least come across any of that fabled Moria silver? Gimli must have been disappointed.
Well, treasure hunting wasn't exactly top priority given the constant threat of orc attacks.
Understandable. But Gimli must have appreciated the craftsmanship of Moria, even in its ruined state.
Absolutely. The source describes vast chambers, echoing halls, and bridges spanning seemingly bottomless chasms. It's a testament to the dwarf's skill and artistry, even in the face of darkness.
It's fascinating how Tolkien blends these grand, almost awe-inspiring descriptions with these moments of intense fear and danger.
He creates this incredible sense of scale, doesn't he? Like when Pippin drops a stone down a well and the sound takes ages to reach the bottom, it makes you realize just how vast and deep these mines truly are.
I'm getting claustrophobic just thinking about it. But speaking of deep, dark places, did they finally have that orc showdown, the one we've been anticipating?
Oh, yes. The orcs eventually find them, and a fierce battle erupts.
Did they manage to fight their way out?
They fought bravely, but as you can imagine, they were outnumbered. They had to retreat, making their way towards the eastern gate, hoping to escape into the open air.
I can only imagine how intense that must have been, fighting for their lives in the darkness. Did they all make it out?
They reached the bridge of Khazad-dûm. a narrow span over a seemingly endless abyss. And that, unfortunately, is where things went very wrong.
I knew it. Something had to go wrong. What happened on the bridge? Did it collapse? Did the orcs corner them?
Worse, a Balrog appeared.
A Balrog. Now we're talking endgame boss level. What happened? Did they manage to defeat it?
The source describes it as a creature of shadow and flame, a demon of immense power. It was a desperate fight, a battle between good and evil, light and darkness. Gandalf confronted the Balrog, holding it at bay while the rest of the Fellowship escaped across the bridge.
Gandalf, always the hero. Did he manage to defeat it? He had to have.
Sadly, no. The Fellow.pdf describes the Balrog dragging Gandalf down into the abyss, both disappearing into the darkness. It's a heartbreaking loss, a pivotal moment that shifts the dynamics of the entire Fellowship.
Wow, I don't even know what to say. It must have been devastating for the Fellowship to lose their guide, their mentor, in such a dramatic way.
It is a turning point in the story. They escape Moria, but they're without their leader. Now they must rely on each other and on Aragorn to continue the quest.
Speaking of Aragorn, what happens to him? Does he finally step up and embrace his destiny?
Well, that's a story for another deep dive, along with the Fellowship's journey through Lothlorien and their encounter with the Lady Galadriel and, their adventures beyond that.
It seems like every step they take leads them further into danger, into the heart of this epic struggle against Sauron. Who would have thought that those peaceful hobbits from the Shire would be at the center of it all?
It all circles back to that question we asked at the beginning. Who are these hobbits? It seems the answer is more complex than anyone could have imagined. They're not just simple folk who enjoy gardening and second breakfast. They're capable of incredible courage, resilience, and sacrifice.
They embody the very spirit of resistance against overwhelming odds, and their journey, as you pointed out, is far from over.
That's right. And as we conclude this deep dive into early Hobbit history, here's a final thought for you to ponder. We've seen the Shire's innocence, Bilbo's unexpected adventure, and the formation of the Fellowship. But the quest to destroy the ring has only just begun. What challenges await them? What sacrifices will they be forced to make? And ultimately, will they succeed?
Only time and further exploration of Tolkien's masterpiece will tell. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of hobbits and the early events of The Lord of the Rings. Until next time, keep those imaginations burning bright.